As the years passed, Themba's influence spread well beyond South Africa as his foundation gained international recognition. Football fans around the world began to learn more about the man behind the accolades, the man who had come from a small, humble neighborhood and who had never forgotten where he came from. He became a respected figure not only in the football world but also in the global community. People from all walks of life reached out to him, seeking advice, partnership, or simply to learn from his example. He shared his story at global conferences, participated in interviews with international media, and worked with nonprofits and organizations to help improve the lives of disadvantaged communities worldwide. Despite the many opportunities to travel and speak in foreign lands, Themba remained committed to his roots. His foundation, which had started with a few football programs, had now expanded to include educational initiatives, mental health resources, and financial literacy workshops. He knew that giving kids the tools to succeed on and off the pitch was just as important as their athletic abilities. One evening, after a particularly successful event where young athletes had gathered to showcase their talent, Themba received a call that would shape the next phase of his life. A prestigious football club from Europe had reached out, offering him a role as an ambassador and coach to help develop young talent from Africa. It was an opportunity that had once seemed impossible for someone with his background, but now it was within reach. Though the offer was tempting, Themba took his time to think it through. He consulted with Ayanda, his family, and the leadership of his foundation. The decision wasn't just about personal growth or prestige. It was about whether he could continue his mission of empowering African youth through football while balancing the demands of a new position in an international organization. After much consideration, Themba decided to accept the role, but with one stipulation: that he would continue to work closely with grassroots football initiatives in Africa and remain actively involved in his own foundation. He knew that this was more than just an individual career move. It was an opportunity to bring greater visibility to African football and create more opportunities for the continent's young athletes. His role as an ambassador and coach allowed him to travel the globe, working with young players from all over Africa, providing them with coaching and mentorship, and helping them navigate the transition from youth football to professional careers. Themba quickly became a beloved figure within international football circles, known not only for his football expertise but for his unwavering commitment to social change. But what truly set him apart was his ability to see the big picture. He didn't just focus on the top talents in the game. He was equally passionate about providing every aspiring player with the tools to succeed, whether they were playing for a professional club or representing their local team in a small village. Years later, Themba retired from professional football, having achieved everything he had set out to do, on and off the pitch. But his legacy was far from over. His football academy in Khayelitsha had become one of the leading institutions in the country, with dozens of players going on to play in top leagues around the world. His foundation had become a beacon of hope for young athletes from all walks of life, and its programs were now being replicated in other parts of Africa and beyond. Themba's name had become synonymous with not only football greatness but also social change and community empowerment. People remembered him for his humility, his drive, and his unwavering belief in the power of sports to change lives. And even though he had long since hung up his boots, his impact continued to grow. His final years were spent mentoring the next generation of leaders, both on and off the field, ensuring that his vision for a brighter, more inclusive future would never fade. As he stood on the field watching the young athletes practice, Themba smiled. He had come full circle. From the streets of Khayelitsha to the global stage, he had never lost sight of his purpose: to inspire and uplift others, to show them that anything was possible if they believed in themselves and worked hard enough to make it happen. His journey had been long, but it had only just begun. And as he looked toward the future, he knew that the seeds of hope and opportunity he had planted would continue to grow, leaving a legacy that would inspire generations to come. Themba's story was no longer just his own. It was the story of every young person who dared to dream. And as long as there were children with aspirations, his work would never be done. As Themba's influence spread, his work began to attract attention from people in other sectors who wanted to collaborate and help further his mission. Educational institutions, tech companies, and even government agencies recognized the potential of using football as a tool for social good, and they reached out to him for guidance and partnership. One particularly exciting project involved a partnership with a global tech company that was interested in using virtual reality to help train young athletes. The idea was to create a platform where players could experience training drills, match simulations, and tactical sessions without the limitations of travel or physical resources. Themba saw the potential to provide even more opportunities for underprivileged youth who didn't have access to expensive training facilities or coaches. He spent countless hours working alongside engineers and developers, making sure the platform was not only innovative but accessible. In the end, they launched an app that became a game changer in the world of youth sports development. The app allowed players to hone their skills at home, study strategies, and receive feedback from experienced coaches, all in real time. The success of the project was staggering. Not only did it bring football training to communities that were once isolated, but it also brought people together from different cultures and backgrounds, all united by their love of the game. Themba had always believed in the unifying power of football, and this initiative proved him right. As his influence continued to grow, so did his responsibility. Despite his numerous commitments, Themba remained humble and grounded. He kept his relationship with Ayanda and his family a priority, always making time for them, even when his schedule was packed. Ayanda had become not just his partner in life, but also his greatest supporter, working alongside him in the foundation to bring their shared vision to life. Together, they had created something powerful, a legacy that would continue to impact the world for years to come. But even as they celebrated the success of their work, Themba knew there was still more to do. The world was always changing and new challenges would always arise. Yet he was determined to meet those challenges head-on, with the same passion and drive that had fueled his journey from Khayelitsha to the global stage. And so, as he looked out over a group of young players in a remote village in Africa, practicing on a field made of dirt, he couldn't help but feel proud. These were the moments that mattered most. These were the moments that defined his purpose. Through football, Themba had been able to give young people not only a chance to excel in their sport, but also a chance at a better life. A chance to dream big and chase those dreams with everything they had. His legacy wasn't just about trophies, fame, or wealth. It was about the lives he had touched, the communities he had helped, and the future he had paved for the next generation of athletes, leaders, and changemakers. Themba knew that he had achieved everything he had ever hoped for, but more importantly, he had given others the opportunity to achieve their own dreams, to reach their own heights. And in that, he had found the true meaning of success. As the sun set on another day of training, Themba walked off the field, surrounded by young players eager to learn from him. He smiled to himself, knowing that the journey was far from over. The world was full of potential, and as long as there were young people willing to put in the effort, he would continue to do everything in his power to help them reach it. Years passed, and Themba's foundation flourished, touching lives across continents. His work continued to be a beacon of hope for those who had been left behind, providing not only access to sports but also to education, mentorship, and life skills. The small football clinics had transformed into global training hubs, where players not only learned the game but also gained critical insights into leadership, teamwork, and personal growth. Themba became a sought-after speaker at international conferences, his words resonating deeply with leaders in various sectors: business, education, politics, and beyond. They admired his dedication, his focus on impact, and his unwavering belief in the power of sport to shape society. Yet, despite his rising prominence, Themba never lost sight of his roots. His every decision, every new project, was guided by the same mission he had when he first started: to create opportunities for the next generation. As the years passed, his role as a mentor evolved. Instead of just being a coach, he became a guide, helping young athletes navigate not only their careers but also their personal journeys. His guidance was always practical and grounded. helping players understand the importance of resilience, humility, and integrity, qualities that had helped him overcome the challenges in his own life. One day, as he was visiting one of the training centers in a rural area, he was introduced to a young woman named Amina. She was an exceptional talent, a midfielder with remarkable skills and vision, but she had faced numerous obstacles just to get to the training field. Amina's story mirrored many others, filled with hardships and sacrifices, but her passion for football was undeniable. Themba took a particular interest in her, offering mentorship and guidance. He saw in her the same drive that had propelled him forward in his own journey. They spent hours talking about her goals, the challenges she faced, and the kind of legacy she wanted to leave behind. Themba knew that Amina had the potential to not only make it in the football world but to inspire others just as he had done. Over time, Amina became one of the foundation's brightest stars. Her dedication to the sport and her community was unmatched, and she quickly became a role model for the younger players. Themba's pride in her success was immense, but more than anything, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment in knowing that his influence was continuing, not through his own direct efforts, but through the lives of those he had mentored. As he watched Amina step onto the global stage, playing for a major club and representing her country, he was reminded of the early days of his own career, when he had dreamt of playing on the world's biggest stages. But what had once been a personal ambition was now something far greater, the opportunity to shape the future, to build a legacy that would live on through those he had touched. Themba's influence was no longer just about football. It had evolved into a broader mission of empowering youth, breaking down barriers, and giving young people the tools they needed to succeed in life, regardless of their background. Football was still at the heart of everything, but the lessons learned on the field were now being applied in every aspect of their lives: education, career choices, personal relationships, and social responsibility. As he looked back on his journey from the dusty fields of Khayelitsha to global recognition, Themba realized that the true measure of success wasn't in the trophies he had won or the records he had broken. It was in the lives he had changed, the people he had helped rise above their circumstances, and the future he had helped to shape. His journey wasn't over. There were still challenges ahead and many more young lives to touch. But one thing was certain: Themba had created a movement that would continue long after he had left the field, and in that he found his greatest achievement. With a final glance at the bright faces of the next generation of players, Themba smiled, knowing that the game would never stop, and neither would his mission to inspire, empower, and give others the opportunity to achieve their dreams. Though he had accomplished so much, Themba knew there was still work to be done. The world was changing rapidly, and the challenges young people faced were evolving with it. Technology was reshaping industries, and the global landscape was increasingly interconnected. Yet some things remained constant: resilience, determination, and the need for role models who understood the struggles of the youth. In the face of these changes, Themba knew that football still held a unique power to unite people. He began exploring new ways to merge technology with his foundation's work, integrating virtual training programs, online mentorship, and innovative education platforms that could reach even more people, regardless of where they were located. The possibilities were limitless, and Themba was determined to explore every avenue to expand the impact of his mission. His journey also led him to a deeper involvement in advocating for social justice, especially in areas where inequalities ran deep. While football had been his way of breaking free, Themba knew that for many, sport alone couldn't provide the full support they needed. He increasingly spoke out about issues such as access to health care, the importance of mental health, and the necessity of inclusive education. He collaborated with organizations that addressed these gaps, creating synergies that would not only uplift young athletes but entire communities. Over time, Themba's influence began to shift from solely being a mentor in the sports world to becoming an advocate for broader societal change. He still coached, still mentored, but now his reach extended into political and social arenas. He was invited to speak with leaders and activists, helping to bridge gaps between communities and governments. His voice became one that championed the rights of the marginalized, the forgotten, and the overlooked. As he grew older, Themba began to consider his legacy more deeply. He realized that the foundation he had built was more than just a tool for changing individual lives. It was a framework for a community-wide transformation. His focus shifted from being directly involved in every initiative to ensuring that the systems he had established would continue to run smoothly and sustainably. He spent time training the next generation of leaders within his foundation, ensuring that the work would continue even if he wasn't physically present. One of those future leaders was Amina, the same young woman he had mentored years ago. She had not only become a star player, but had also taken on a leadership role within the foundation, helping to manage youth programs and training centers. Amina's understanding of both the game and the broader impact of their work made her an ideal candidate to carry the torch forward. Themba saw in her the same fire that had driven him, and he knew that the foundation was in capable hands. In his final years, Themba found peace in knowing that his work was far from over. His legacy wasn't just in the footballers who had succeeded because of him, but in the network of changemakers he had helped to create. He had touched the lives of countless people, and his influence would live on through the generations that would follow. One afternoon, as he walked through the now bustling training center, he was stopped by a young boy who handed him a football. "For you," the boy said, looking up with admiration. Themba smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment he couldn't quite describe. He knew that the game and the mission he had dedicated his life to was alive and thriving. As he watched the young players run across the field, full of energy and hope, Themba realized that his dream had come true. The game had given him everything: freedom, opportunity, and a chance to make a difference. And in return, he had given everything back. The future was bright, and as long as there were young people with dreams, the game would always be there, a vehicle for change, a catalyst for empowerment, and a symbol of possibility. And so, with the field before him, full of life and promise, Themba knew that his journey had reached its true conclusion, not in the final whistle of a game, but in the unyielding spirit of those who would carry the game and his legacy into the future. The years passed and the world continued to evolve, but the foundation that Themba had built remained steadfast, a beacon of hope and possibility for young people everywhere. As his story spread, it inspired not just athletes, but individuals from all walks of life who sought to make a difference in their own communities. Themba's journey had transcended football. It had become a movement, a reminder that one person's vision could change the trajectory of countless lives. Amina, now the executive director of the foundation, worked tirelessly to expand its reach even further. She traveled the world, establishing new partnerships and helping other communities launch similar programs to provide opportunities for their youth. Under her leadership, the foundation's impact multiplied, with more than 50,000 young people benefiting from its educational, sports, and mentorship programs. Meanwhile, Themba continued to offer his wisdom to the next generation, serving as an advisor and occasional guest speaker at various events. His voice, though quieter now with age, still carried the same weight and passion it always had. He had become not just a mentor, but a living legend, someone whose legacy was not just built on his achievements, but on the ripple effect of the lives he had touched. One day, as he sat with Amina in the now expanded community center, watching a group of young athletes practice, he felt a deep sense of pride. They were his legacy, the young girls and boys who ran with ambition in their eyes, the ones who played with purpose, knowing they were part of something bigger than themselves. "These kids," Amina said, nodding towards the players on the field, "they have so much potential, and we're giving them the tools they need to succeed." Themba smiled. "That's all I ever wanted, to give them the chance to reach for the stars." It was in moments like these that he knew the foundation would endure, not just because of the systems in place, but because of the hearts and minds it had shaped. The principles of resilience, discipline, teamwork, and the belief that change is possible had been instilled in every young person who had walked through the doors. They carried these lessons with them, whether they pursued sports, education, or entrepreneurship. As time went on, Themba found solace in knowing he had played his part. He had ignited a spark that would never go out. And while he would no longer be physically present in the day-to-day operations, the work of the foundation, the power of the game, and the impact of his vision would continue to ripple outward, generation after generation. On his final day at the center, Amina stood beside him as they watched a new group of students take to the field, their laughter and voices filling the air. Themba knew this was where his journey had always been leading, into the hands of those who would continue to shape the future. He was at peace, knowing that the legacy of hope, change, and empowerment was alive and well, thriving in the hearts of young people who now had a chance to dream and achieve, just as he had. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the field, Themba placed his hand on Amina's shoulder. "Take care of them," he said softly. Amina nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I will. We all will." And with that, Themba knew his work was done. The game was still playing, and in it the future would always be bright. As the years passed, the story of Themba and his foundation spread even further across the globe. The simple yet powerful mission to provide opportunity, inspiration, and guidance to young people had sparked a movement that continued to resonate with individuals and communities worldwide. In every corner of the earth, new foundations sprang up, each rooted in the values that Themba had championed: resilience, teamwork, and the belief that anyone could change their world if they were given the tools and support to do so. Amina, now an internationally recognized leader in youth development, often found herself standing at podiums across the world, speaking about the transformative power of sport and mentorship. She had become a voice of authority, her words a call to action for leaders, educators, and policymakers to invest in the next generation. Yet, despite all the accolades and recognition, she never lost sight of the Foundation's core mission. She returned often to the community center where it had all begun, to ensure the roots of the organization remained grounded in the spirit of service. In those moments, surrounded by the young people who came to the center seeking direction, she was reminded of why it all mattered. The faces of the children who walked in, full of potential, eager to learn and ready to dream, were her daily reminder that the work was far from finished. One day, as Amina walked through the center with an old friend who had just returned from a speaking engagement in New York, she was stopped by a familiar face. "Ms. Amina," called out a young girl barely 12 years old who had been a part of the program since she was 6. "I just wanted to tell you that I made the team." Amina smiled, kneeling down to meet her eye level. "You did? That's amazing. I'm so proud of you." The girl's eyes gleamed with excitement. "And I told my mom I want to start helping the younger kids here when I get older, just like you helped me." Amina's heart swelled with pride. In that moment, she knew the future of the foundation was secure, not in buildings or financial support, but in the hearts of the young people who had been touched by its work, who were now ready to pass the torch forward. Across town, a young man named Jamal was preparing to step into a new role. Jamal had been a part of the foundation's soccer program for years, and after earning a scholarship to a top university, he had returned to serve as a mentor to the next generation of athletes. His journey mirrored that of so many others who had found themselves on the field, discovering a pathway to a brighter future through the lessons of the game. Jamal, like Amina, was a living testament to the power of mentorship and opportunity. As Jamal worked with the young players, guiding them through drills and offering advice, he found himself often reflecting on his own journey. It hadn't always been easy. There had been times when he had doubted himself, times when he wondered if the dream would slip away. But each time he remembered Themba's words, "The game is life, and life is a game. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you always keep playing." It was those words that had carried him through, and it was those words that now fueled his passion to give back to others. As the Foundation's network continued to expand, more and more success stories emerged. Young people who had come from difficult circumstances, only to rise above them with the help of their mentors and the support of the programs. Each story was a reflection of the greater vision that no dream was too big and no obstacle too great for those who were willing to put in the work. And as for Themba, though he had long since stepped away from the front lines of the Foundation's day-to-day operations, his presence was still deeply felt. His picture hung in the main office of the community center, a quiet reminder to all who passed through that this legacy had started with one person who believed in the power of possibility. Though his physical presence was no longer there to guide them, his spirit, embodied in the mission of the foundation and the hearts of its leaders, remained. And for all who had been touched by his vision, they knew the journey was far from over.